Could Texas make a move this week that will help them land Arch Manning next year? What's up, guys? BK Brad Kellner. Today is Monday, February 14th, 2022. Happy Valentine's Day to you and yours. Hopefully you're not getting in trouble for watching this video right now. But we're talking Texas football and some Texas basketball in today's video. I will get to the Texas basketball a little bit later on. The Longhorns losing to Baylor over the weekend, and Texas has a pretty massive week ahead of it with a trip to Norman on tap tomorrow, and then Texas Tech coming to Austin this Saturday. The Longhorns, of course, looking for revenge against the Red Raiders after what happened in Lubbock a couple of weeks ago. So we'll get to the Texas basketball a little bit later, but we're going to open up with some Texas football. By the way, please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that already. I really do appreciate the continued love and support. We talk all things Texas Longhorn athletics on this channel. So if you're a fan of that, make sure you subscribe and tap that notification bell so you're always informed whenever I release new content. All right, paying off the tees from the start of the video. Could Texas make a move this week that will help them land Arch Manning next year? Everybody knows who Arch Manning is, the #1 recruit in the class of 2023, the son of Cooper Manning, of course, the nephew of Peyton and Eli, and the grandson of Archie Manning. Arch Manning, one of the most highly touted recruits ever. I mean, he's the #1 player in the country for the class of 2023. Any #1 player in any class is going to get talked about a lot, but you couple that with the fact that this guy is a Manning. Yeah, one of the most highly decorated and most coveted recruits in a long, long time for college football. And Texas appears to be a finalist for Arch Manning. I think there's still a long way to go in the recruitment of Arch Manning, but a Final Four seems to be out there for Manning, and Texas is one of the four. Now, the Longhorns are going up against some of the biggest dogs in the sport. You've got Alabama in the mix. You've got Georgia in the mix. You also have Ole Miss there as well. So Alabama with Nick Saban, they're in the mix for every big-time recruit every year. No surprise there. Georgia just won the national championship. They've been recruiting at a ridiculous level over the past few seasons, too, under Kirby Smart. And then Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. Well, they're likely going to have a quarterback drafted in the first round here in a couple of months. Lane Kiffin, one of the better offensive minds in the sport. Ole Miss just won 10 games in a regular season for the first time in school history. And, of course, Eli Manning, uncle of Arch Manning, played his college ball at Ole Miss. So you've got some family ties there as well. So it's not going to be easy for Texas, and this probably goes without saying, but the Longhorns are going to have to do better than 5-7 in 2022 if they have any chance of landing Arch Manning for 2023, right? I mean, Arch Manning has to see himself as a guy who can be successful in the Texas offense, and he, of course, wants to eventually play on Sundays. He's got to make sure that he gives himself the best chance to do that. So the Longhorns, most important thing for them is, well, they've got to play well next season for Arch to even consider coming to the 40 acres. But a move that Texas could make this week or sometime in the not too distant future that would help them in the pursuit of Arch Manning would be hiring David Cutcliffe. David Cutcliffe was most recently the head coach at Duke. He was there for 14 years, had a lot of success at Duke, especially considering what Duke football was before David Cutcliffe got there. But David Cutcliffe, 67 years old. He's got a ton of coaching experience under his belt. Once again, he and Duke parted ways a couple of months ago. And there was a report that came out last week from Horns 24/7 that said, well, Texas was in talks with David Cutcliffe about bringing him on staff in some role. I don't think it'd be an official job. Look, Texas doesn't have any coordinator positions or position coaches left, so it would be more of an advisory type of role for David Cutcliffe, more of an off-the-field type of position for him. But Texas apparently in talks with David Cutcliffe. Now, I did some researching earlier today, as a matter of fact, and David Cutcliffe has other offers. Other schools are interested in David Cutcliffe's services. And I think David Cutcliffe might take some time before coming to an ultimate decision. But Texas in the mix, they reached out. They've had conversations with David Cutcliffe. And you say, well, BK, why does that matter? Why does bringing in a former Duke head football coach help with recruiting? If we were talking about bringing in Coach K to help with Chris Beard, yeah, I'd get it. But why Duke football? Well, David Cutcliffe, for those who don't know, has a great relationship with the Manning family that dates all the way back to the 90s. Cutcliffe was Peyton's offensive coordinator at Tennessee, and Cutcliffe was Eli's head coach at Ole Miss in the early 2000s when he was there. So, and that's not a relationship that just stopped after Eli graduated and went off to the NFL. Like, Cutcliffe has maintained a great relationship with the Manning family over the past couple of decades. So you've got that. And I think that's going to be incredibly important for the pursuit of Arch Manning. So look, bringing in David Cutcliffe would not make Texas the favorite. It would not ensure or guarantee that Arch Manning is coming to Texas, but I don't think it would hurt. If anything, it helps the Longhorns' chances in their pursuit of Arch Manning. So yeah, Cutcliffe, once again, a great relationship with the Manning family. And even if he didn't have that relationship with the Mannings, like, I'd be cool with bringing him in just because he's got a lot of experience as a head coach. And when you think Duke football, well, there's not a ton to think about. And if you look at David Cutcliffe's overall record at Duke, not something to write home about, but he's got the 2 winningest seasons in program history. He's developed a couple of quarterbacks, including Daniel Jones, turned him into a first-round pick a couple of years ago. Obviously, the work he did with Peyton and Eli from back in the day, that shows that this dude knows how to work with and develop quarterbacks. So that would be a great addition for Steve Sarkisian. And yeah, the 2 winningest seasons in Duke history. Also, there's only been one time in program history where Duke has finished the year in the AP Top 25. That happened under David Cutcliffe as well. So this guy's a good coach. He's 67 years old. Once again, he's been around forever. And man, I mean, Texas already brought in Gary Patterson. I think most, if not every Longhorn fan was a fan of that move because of the experience that GP has. Well, Gary Patterson and David Cutcliffe, those two guys together have a combined 43 years of head coaching experience at the college level. That's one of the reasons why people were excited about bringing Patterson in, because he was a very successful coach for a number of years. David Cutcliffe, very successful coach, not Gary Patterson level, but a successful coach for a number of years in college football. So I would love that. Once again, there are other teams interested in David Cutcliffe, so we'll see what happens. But I love that Texas is in the mix. I love that they're having that conversation, and I would be thrilled if David Cutcliffe ended up in Austin. Once again, it won't be as a coordinator or as a position coach. The Longhorns don't have any of those jobs available, but it would be in some sort of role, probably an offensive analyst type of position for David Cutcliffe. I'm cool with bringing in as many coaches to help out as possible. That's what Nick Saban does every year at Alabama. He brings in, of course, coordinators and position coaches, but a ton of support staffers and analysts to help him every single year. And why not do that? If you have the ability to do that, like Texas does, like Alabama does, why not? Give yourself as much help as possible. Do what you can to have as many smart minds in the room as you possibly can. So we'll see what happens, guys. But once again, Texas in the mix for David Cutcliffe. I would like that regardless of the Arch Manning situation. But with the relationship that Cutcliffe has with the entire Manning family, that would be a big-time get for Texas if they're able to make that happen. So there's some Texas football stuff. How are y'all feeling about Arch Manning? Comment below with your thoughts. Do you agree with me that hiring David Cutcliffe could help and could go a long way into Texas landing the #1 recruit in the class of 2023? Do you disagree with me? I would love to hear from y'all. So comment below with your thoughts. All right, there's some Texas football. Now let's transition to Texas basketball. The Longhorns lost in Waco over the weekend. They got drubbed by Baylor. No way around it. 80-63, the final score. Baylor jumped out to an early double-digit lead, and they never looked back. I think the closest Texas got things in the second half was 11, but you never really felt like the Longhorns were a serious threat to come back and actually win the game at the Farrell Center. So Baylor, the better team, pretty much from the opening tip. They played really, really well on Saturday. And the Longhorns, after knocking off Kansas on Big Monday, they lose to Baylor on Saturday. So Texas finished its 5-game stretch against ranked opponents 3-2, which I'll take that. I talked about that in a video before that little 5-game gauntlet started, and I said, you have to go 2-3. Like, please go 2-3. If you can go 3-2, I'd be very satisfied. And they got the win against Tennessee in the Big 12 SEC Challenge to start. They got the win over Iowa State, which felt like the most winnable of the 5. And then it was like, all right, of the next 3, at Texas Tech, home against Kansas, at Baylor, can you get one of those? Excuse me. Can you get one of those? And Texas was able to get the one against Kansas. So they go 3-2 in that 5-game stretch against ranked teams, and the Longhorns are sitting pretty right now in the eyes of the committee. I've got the bracket matrix pulled up in front of me right now. And the bracket matrix is a website that compiles every bracketology from around the country. So it's not just looking at Joe Lunardi or Jerry Palm or some of the guys that most people know. It's literally like every bracketology on the internet is compiled into this one website, and the bracket matrix just averages out where the teams are. So at the moment, Texas a 5 seed, according to the bracket matrix. So Texas in a very, very good spot. Still a number of games left. Still an opportunity for the Longhorns to move up, still an opportunity for the Longhorns to move down. But right now, Texas is in the NCAA tournament. We don't have to have the bubble conversation at this moment. I hope we don't have to have the bubble conversation at any point the rest of the season. But Texas in a good spot. That win over Kansas, far and away their most impressive win of the year in terms of the resume. So that was a big one for Texas to get. And once again, going 3-2 in that stretch of 5. Now, Texas didn't really have any super quality wins going in to that recent stretch. The win against Oklahoma and Austin was nice. The win in Fort Worth was pretty nice. Like OU and TCU are tournament teams right now, so to get those were pretty big. But like no wins against ranked opponents before this recent 5-game run, and Texas now has 3 wins over ranked opponents. And of course, they'll have an opportunity for a few more down the stretch here in February and into March. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention for the game on Saturday. Look, Texas, Baylor's got size and they've got athleticism. We've talked about that too. Like those are the 2 biggest weaknesses of this Texas roster. The Longhorns don't have a lot of size and they just don't have a lot of plus athletes. And Baylor has a number of plus athletes. Baylor has a couple of first-round picks on its roster. Texas does not. And you saw both of those things on full display, right? Size and athleticism. Texas just got worked by Baylor. The Longhorns, a bad matchup for Baylor. Laid a little money on Baylor going into the game on Saturday, and Baylor played really well too. I mean, Baylor was struggling a little bit. They were 5-4 in their 9 previous games going into Saturday, but they looked really damn good on Saturday. And I don't think there are a lot of teams in college basketball that could beat Baylor the way they were playing over the weekend. Losing Chamwa Chacha was a big loss for them. So we'll see if they can respond. We're not talking too much about Baylor, but yeah. A bad matchup for the Longhorns. That's what's going to kill Texas come March. Teams with size and athleticism. And there aren't a ton of teams that have that combination of those 2 things that Baylor does. But I think we saw that in Lubbock. I think we saw that in Waco. That combination, not a good recipe for Texas. So Texas loses. Got to put that one behind them. A big week coming up for the Longhorns. I said I'd preview it, so I'll give a little bit of a preview of these 2 games coming up this weekend. We'll definitely do a video later this week. Didn't need to say later twice. Talking more about the Oklahoma game and about the Texas Tech game. But a big one for the Longhorns tomorrow in Norman, the Red River Shootout Part 2. Texas dominated OU in Austin a couple of weeks ago. The game was never really that close. The Texas jumped out to a double-digit lead. Baylor couldn't cut it to single digits in the second half. Kind of feels like what happened in Waco to Texas. That's sort of what happened to Oklahoma when they came to Austin a few weeks back. A 14-point win for the Longhorns. Andrew Jones had a great day. And at the time, that was Texas's most impressive win of the season in terms of resume and in terms of eye test. Like that was a complete 40-minute performance on both ends of the floor by the Longhorns. But that was at home. And we all know how good Texas has been in Austin this year. They're 15-1 at the Irwin Center. The Longhorns are 2-6 away from home right now. Oklahoma, meanwhile, 9-4 at home. They are 2-6 away from home. So, like every team in the Big 12 has been way better at home than on the road this year. And that's look, that happens often in college basketball. But it feels like it's extreme in this conference this year, where teams are just night and day different on their home floor, considering when they're on the road. Kansas and Baylor are both. Or Kansas is 5-2, I should say. Baylor is 6-2. They both have winning records and handily winning records, but most teams in the Big 12 have not been nearly as good on the road as they have been at home this season. You look at Texas Tech. Texas Tech's 15-0 at home. They're 2-5 away from Lubbock this season. So it's been an issue for Texas. It's been an issue for a lot of teams in this conference this year. Winning on the road. The Longhorns have to find a way to win on the road. It's not a must-win game. Maybe I shouldn't say they have to find a way, but this would be a big win for Texas. To sweep Oklahoma, that's always nice, but this would be another quality win. I believe this will be a quadrant 1 win for Texas if they're able to pick up this dub at the Lloyd Noble Center tomorrow. So Oklahoma's coming off a pretty good week. They bullied Texas Tech in the midweek last week, and then they nearly beat Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse over the weekend. They were in control for a large percentage of that game, and they had a shot to tie or win in the final seconds. Didn't make it. They lose by 2, but like Oklahoma playing some pretty good basketball as of late, and you know they're going to be amped up. The crowd's going to be wild with Texas coming to town. It's a big game for them too. Oklahoma a little bit more on the bubble than Texas right now, so they would like a quality win over a ranked opponent, and they'll have the chance to get that tomorrow. So that's a big one for Texas. Hopefully they can find a win there, and then Texas Tech coming to town this weekend. Technically a home game for the Longhorns, but I'm worried how much red and black is going to be in the stands at the Irwin Center on Saturday. So this feels like obviously you'd love both, but find a way to win one this week if you are Texas, because both of these would be quadrant 1 wins, impressive wins, the most impressive type of win in the eyes of the tournament committee. They would be nice to get. So Texas and Oklahoma tomorrow, Texas and Texas Tech on Saturday. More basketball talk in a future video. I think that's it for today's video. Some Texas football. We'll keep you posted on David Cutcliffe. If I hear anything else behind the scenes, I'll let you know. Once again, the latest I've heard, and this is coming today. I got this text earlier today, Monday, February 14th. Texas has reached out, but other teams have also reached out to David Cutcliffe, and I think Cutcliffe's going to take a little bit of time before making his ultimate decision. I don't know exactly what he's looking for, but he's got some options, it appears. So we'll let you know if anything happens there. And yeah, more Texas football and basketball talk coming in future videos. So make sure y'all subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that yet, and tap that notification bell so you always know when I release new content. Quick shout out to today's video sponsor, Last Stand Hats. Use discount code BK10 at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your purchase of any Last Stand hat. Check them out at laststandhats.com. All right, guys, appreciate the continued love and support. Until next time, y'all stay safe, y'all stay healthy, and hook 'em.